Amy, I hope you can improve the food. It's not very good. What do you mean by not very good? I want better bread, and there are better ovens for baking bread now. Alright, I'll tell the housekeeper, Emmanuela, about it. I'm Amy Anderson, 35 years old, and I work as a full-time FX trader from home. I met my husband, Eric, who's 2 years older than me, at my old job. We worked at a small mail-order company. He worked in the pet food department, and I worked in cosmetics, answering customer calls. Our company didn't follow the labor rules, so we worked a lot of overtime, and usually stayed late. We'd go for drinks once a week to relax after work with some coworkers. At that time, even though we had good pay because of all the overtime, we didn't have time to enjoy it. The only thing we looked forward to was those weekly drinks to cope with how tired we were. I started dating Eric, and we got married 3 years ago. After marriage, I quit my job and stayed home for a while. Then, I started looking for something I could do at home and found FX trading. I read a lot of books, researched online, and studied FX trading. It wasn't easy at first, but I kept learning and eventually became good at it. I bought a computer just for FX trading, opened a trading account, and practiced with small amounts. Over time, I developed my own way of trading and started earning steadily. But my in-laws, Nicholas and Julia, didn't understand what I was doing. Last year, Nicholas retired, and they were living in public housing. Eric invited them to live with us in our 3-bedroom apartment because he thought it would be hard for them to live on their pension alone. I pay the rent for our apartment, and while Eric works, I cover all the living expenses since I started making money with FX trading. Mom, Dad, Amy will take care of the bills, so you don't have to worry, Eric told them. Thank you, Amy, that's very kind, they replied. And that's how I ended up living with Eric's parents. I don't do the housework myself. Emmanuela, our housekeeper, does everything. She's a great cook and helps with all the chores, which gives me more time to study FX trading and write about it. But Nicholas and Julia didn't like that. When they first moved in, they were polite and thankful, but after 2 months, they started saying, "What's the point of having a wife who just stays home and doesn't do any housework? She just sits in front of the computer all day. FX trading is just gambling." They didn't say it directly to me, but I could tell they were talking to Eric about it. Since I was paying for everything, Eric no longer needed to worry about the bills, and he started spending more on his clothes. He always wore custom suits, carried expensive bags, and wore designer shoes. He loved fashion and seemed happy, so he defended me when his parents complained about my work. But recently, Eric's attitude changed. "Amy, you're always sitting in front of the computer, and you never wear makeup or dress up. Don't you think that's boring and unattractive? Do I really need to wear makeup and fancy clothes when I'm just staying at home? It might be fine for you, but it's not good enough for me." "What do you mean not good enough for you? Are you saying I'm not good enough because I don't dress up?" "Exactly. Don't you ever want to dress up for me so I'm more attracted to you?" "Attracted to me? Are you serious? Do I need to dress up for you to find me attractive?" After that conversation, Eric started complaining about me to his parents. One evening, after dinner, I overheard this. "Amy always makes fun of us. She makes us feel bad." "Yeah, it feels like she thinks we're poor just because we used to live in public housing." "I agree, I feel that way too. And the fact that she doesn't do any housework shows she thinks she's better than us. She's just gambling to make money and acts so bossy about it." Anyone can do FX trading. Amy just studied a little on her own and started earning $80,000 a month. I could do that too. "You're right, Eric, you could do it too." I don't like how she acts so arrogant when she's just making money by gambling. She doesn't work hard for it. Anyone can do what she's doing. Plus, she's not even cute. I don't know who she thinks she is. I was working from home, but Eric and I used to have breakfast together before he left for work. Eric still works at the same company we both used to work for, so he comes home late. We should have valued breakfast as our time together, but Eric started skipping it, saying, "Just eat breakfast on the way." Seeing this, Julia said, "Eric's getting tired of you because you don't even do your duties as a wife. That's what happens, Amy." She said this in a sarcastic way. "What do you mean duties as a wife, Julia? If you mean housework, hasn't Emmanuela done it all perfectly? These so-called duties as a wife are outdated." "Outdated? We value the old customs in our family. Your grandmother-in-law used to discipline me a lot." "Discipline? Isn't it enough if the housework is done? I'm paying Emmanuela enough for it. Do you think this is about money? Just because you're paying for everything, doesn't mean you can talk down to us. You shouldn't be bossy about it. Julia, who said this to me, seems to be spending a lot of money on socializing with people her own age in the apartment building now that she doesn't have to pay for living expenses. I sometimes see her going out with expensive brand bags that she must have bought. Nicholas spends all of his pension on golf. He's bought new clubs and has a golf bag right by the front door. I'm paying for everything, including the rent and all of their living expenses, and yet these people still act this way, even though I question their behavior. My in-laws had nowhere else to go, so I just put up with them for now. About a month after Eric stopped having breakfast with me, he started going on more business trips. He told me he was starting a new department at his company and was planning to import LEDs from Korea, so he had to travel there more often. One weekend, Eric was supposed to be in Korea on a business trip, but when I went out for dinner with my friend Lily at a fancy Italian restaurant, I saw Eric there with another woman. Lily pointed him out, saying, "Hey, Amy, isn't that your husband?" At first, I tried to convince myself it wasn't him, but it clearly was. Every time Eric said he was going to Korea, it meant he was spending the weekend with another woman. The woman with him was young, probably in her early 20s, much younger than Eric, who's 37. I remembered Eric asking me once, "Don't you want me to be attracted to you?" That made it clear to me, my husband was definitely cheating on me. The next day, I hired a private investigator to look into the affair. Lately, I had also been getting packages addressed to Julia at our house. "Julia, did you buy something again?" "Be quiet, Amy. Do I need your permission to buy anything?" "No, that's not what I mean." Julia had recently become obsessed with online shopping, buying expensive brand bags and jewelry. I was worried because there are many fake items sold online, and I didn't want her to get scammed. And I was right. One day, when Eric was at work, Julia came into my office and said, "Hey, Amy, come take a look at something." I followed her to the living room, where she was opening a package that had just arrived. "I bought 5 bags, they were cheap as a bundle," Julia explained. When I looked at the bags, I could tell they were fake. "Julia, you have to be careful when buying online, especially with high-end brands. There's a good chance they could be fake." I was shocked to see how much she'd paid for them. "What should I do with these 5 bags?" she asked. "I think you should contact the seller and see if they have a return policy." She tried to reach out to the seller, but there was no phone number or working contact details. When she finally found a number, it was out of service. Julia had spent $5,000 on 5 fake bags. The website seemed legitimate at first, but the prices were too low to be true. She paid by bank transfer, and there was no way to reverse the payment through her credit card. "Julia, you really have to be careful. If the price is too good to be true, it probably is. You need to think carefully before buying anything, especially online." Don't act like I don't know what I'm talking about, Amy. It's not that. You just wasted money. Paying $5,000 for fake bags is ridiculous. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Since talking didn't help, I went back to my room to work. Then, after dinner on Sunday, Nicholas suddenly told me to stop doing FX trading. He had gone golfing with a friend from his old job and heard about FX trading. He said, "I heard Forex trading is a scam. Amy, are you making money by scamming people?" "What? How do you make money with FX trading? That sounds like what scammers do. I heard it's all a scam." "No, I'm not scamming anyone or making anyone invest in anything. I saw you using social media. That's what scammers use to trick people." "No, I just write a blog for people who are interested in FX trading. There's nothing scammy about it." "You think you can fool me just because I don't know anything about computers?" "No, I'm not fooling or scamming you. Dad thinks you're scamming because it looks too easy for you to make money, Amy. It's not easy money, Eric. I've told you this before. It's not that simple. You just learned a little and now you're making a lot. It must be easy. Meanwhile, I'm busting my ass at work, starting this new department." "What? Eric, I thought you were supporting me in my FX trading. Do you want me to stop doing FX trading? If I do that, how will we pay for everything? We won't even be able to afford the rent." "I can pay the rent myself, since I'm the full-time FX trader." Eric and his family were living off the lifestyle I paid for, yet they didn't seem grateful. They only complained about my FX trading. The next day, I got the results from the private investigator I had hired. It turned out Eric was cheating on me. He was having an affair with a 25-year-old woman, 12 years younger than him. I didn't know her, but she worked with Eric at the company after I left. She'd gone on several business trips with him to Korea. For a few days, I thought about how to tell Eric. This would mean the end of our marriage, and a divorce. That same day, Emmanuela made dinner for us. Just as she was leaving, Julia spoke up. Amy, I talked to Nicholas and Eric, and we don't like anything about you. We've decided to live on our own. I want you to leave. Eric hadn't come home from work yet. We don't want money that comes from your scams. We don't like how you act like you know everything. We've discussed it with Eric, and we've decided you should leave. I had a feeling this was coming. Fine then. Eric wasn't even home, which made it clear he didn't care about me anymore. I realized I didn't need to take care of their lives anymore, so I packed my bags and moved to a hotel. The divorce happened soon after that. Since I'd discovered Eric's affair during our marriage, I was able to file for alimony. I rented a one-bedroom apartment just for myself and moved in. I changed the lease on the old apartment where I lived with Eric to his name. 4 months later, I got a call from Eric. He said he wanted to talk and would come to my new apartment. I had a bad feeling when Eric showed up with Nicholas and Julia. Amy, we're sorry. We apologize for everything. Please come back and live with us, Eric said, sounding regretful. Nicholas and Julia quickly joined in, apologizing too. What is this? I asked, confused. Eric, looking down, explained that they couldn't afford the rent anymore. We're about to be evicted and have nowhere to go. Amy, please help us. What are you talking about? Eric went on to explain that after I left, his new department failed. The LEDs they imported were defective, with faulty sockets and bulbs about to fall off. They had to recall the entire shipment, which caused major problems. Eric was fired from his job. Trying to make money on his own, Eric invested in forex trading using his small savings, but lost it all by making bad trades. Nicholas tried to use his own savings to invest in stocks, but that didn't work either. They had no money for rent, and no way to move out. Eric begged, please help us. Amy. I was stunned. We're divorced. Eric. I know, but please, help us. What happened to your young girlfriend? When I lost my job, I couldn't get in touch with her anymore. Yeah, why would she stay with someone who got fired? Eric continued to beg. Amy, you're all I have left. Please, let's get remarried. Let's start over. Nicholas and Julia also joined in, apologizing for their behavior, admitting they were wrong, and asking for another chance. Please, Amy, they said, let's be a family again. I was firm. No way in hell I'm doing that. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. They continued to argue, but when I threatened the police, they finally left. After that, Eric called me twice more, asking me to get back together, but I refused both times. I didn't care what happened to him or his parents anymore. Spending so much time alone, working as a trader, I realized it was time to start dating again. I talked to Lily, and she said she'd introduce me to someone. Tomorrow, I'm meeting her and her friend. I'm looking forward to it and to starting a new chapter in my life.
Everyone aspires to be the best at something, but when this confidence transforms into taking others for granted, the universe might deliver a lesson. Understanding that there's always someone better out there is the key to humility, which is what truly defines the strongest individuals. My name is Mina, and I've been married to my husband Thomas for 2 years. When we decided to tie the knot, Thomas warned me about his troublesome sister, suggesting she might become a burden. As an only child, the prospect of having a sister excited me. But Thomas's words also sparked anxiety and curiosity about the kind of trouble she could bring. Now, 2 years into our marriage, I fully comprehend and have experienced what Thomas meant. I was born into a relatively wealthy family where my father runs a mid-sized trading company. He is well-informed and progressive in his thinking. My parents always respected my decisions, creating an environment where I could freely explore my interests. The 2008 Lehman Brothers collapse, when I was just an 11-year-old elementary school student, intrigued me. Witnessing the significant impact it had on the world and Japan, I became fascinated by how a disruption in the flow of funds could cause a global panic. This sparked my interest in researching financial circulation. Naturally curious and apparently quite intelligent, my parents had me take an IQ test, and the results exceeded the normal range. As I delved into this newfound interest, many aspects became clear. but my curiosity never waned throughout middle and high school. Continuing my exploration of this topic, I pursued a major in college that allowed me to deepen my understanding. As I delved further, my eagerness to apply my knowledge led me to venture into day trading, encouraged by my professor, who highlighted day trading as an excellent way to experience capital flow firsthand. I embraced the challenge, aware of the need for careful management to avoid debt. My research efforts were extensive as I identified statistically favorable stocks for day trading. Armed with a modest sum from all the allowances I had saved up, I engaged in buying and selling the same stock within the same day, with the goal of capitalizing on quick results. My predictions proved accurate, and though the initial increase was modest, I steadily grew my funds by repeating this process and gradually increasing my investment. In a year, I managed to amplify the initial amount by more than 50 times. While the sum may not have been significant on a larger scale, my primary concern wasn't about the magnitude of the achievement. What mattered most to me was whether the answers I had derived from my research were correct. During my university seminar, I encountered a student named Thomas, known for his analytical skills. Our shared perspectives on various topics drew us close, and after graduation, despite my initial plan to join my father's company, Thomas proposed an alternative path. He identified a job at a foreign investment firm, a proposition he presented on the day of our graduation ceremony. Following a celebration, Thomas confessed his feelings, and without hesitation, I said yes. His intelligence had always been a source of comfort, and his understanding nature made me feel at ease. As we both embarked on new journeys, gaining experience, our relationship continued to strengthen. Inspired by the concept of trade at my father's company, I dedicated myself to researching foreign companies to gain an advantage in negotiations and established a robust foundation for our deals. Thomas, with his inherent analytical skills, excelled in identifying profitable investment opportunities, earning high praise within his company. Despite our busy schedules, we maintained our connection through dates that provided refreshing breaks before diving back into our respective work. Over the 5 years of our relationship, we became indispensable to each other, evolving into a reliable support system. Deeply immersed in our exciting careers, we decided it was the right time to take the next step. Thomas proposed, expressing his desire to spend the rest of his life with me. Without hesitation, I accepted his proposal, eager to begin our life together. However, when it was time for a family meeting, Thomas disclosed something important about his sister, Alice. According to Thomas, Alice, his sister 2 years younger, was known for being challenging. He cautioned that she might cause some discomfort or inconvenience. Alice, exceptionally bright from a young age, developed a competitive spirit, looking down on others, including Thomas, whom she considered inferior. Even though Thomas was regarded as a prodigy, Alice claimed superiority, joining a rival investment and consulting firm to compete with him in her career. Thomas was worried that his engagement might affect Alice's pride, as she always sought to prove herself superior. Having no close friends and seemingly without a significant other, Alice appeared to harbor insecurities, masked by a brave face. Thomas was concerned about how she might react, fearing that she would intensify her efforts to demonstrate her strength in the face of our engagement. Attempting to reassure Thomas with a light-hearted "it's okay" proved ineffective, as his worry seemed unending. This only heightened my curiosity about his intense sister, Alice. Finally meeting her at a family gathering, her sharp, intelligent beauty was unmistakable, though a certain coldness lingered. Whether that was intrinsic to her nature or a result of my preconceived notions, I couldn't discern. Thomas's parents, in contrast, were kind and humorous, putting me at ease about getting along with them. However, beyond the initial greeting, Alice remained silent, merely eating her meal while scrutinizing me as if assessing my worth. After the meeting, as everyone was leaving, Alice pulled me aside. Curious about the person I would be, she expressed disappointment, dismissing me as just a girl who secured a job at her parents' company and likely slacking off. She asserted her financial prowess, claiming to move large amounts of money and make significant profits, placing herself on a level far superior to mine. According to Alice, Thomas settling for someone like me was disappointing, and she concluded by stating that today's gain was realizing how much I fell short of her standards. Stunned and unsure how to respond, Alice left the room, leaving me there. Thomas returned, noticing I hadn't left with Alice. Concerned, he asked if something had happened. In response to Alice's jab, I laughed it off, assuring Thomas that it was just a minor comment. Thomas apologized for his sister's rudeness, but I reassured him that I wasn't bothered. It didn't hurt, but I couldn't help but wonder what would happen the next time we met, particularly at the wedding. Strangely, I found myself looking forward to it, anticipating the interesting dynamics that might unfold. Surprised by my response, Thomas and I went on to have a grand wedding attended by family, friends, and colleagues from both sides. We pledged our eternal love and reveled in the joyous occasion, but Alice appeared grumpy and irritated right from the start. Thomas had mentioned that Alice had neither friends nor a romantic partner, so I could somewhat understand her feelings, finding it slightly amusing. During a break for a wardrobe change, as I waited for the staff to assist me, Alice entered seemingly without reason. She remarked that my happiness was only for the day and predicted that, as a plain woman, I wouldn't get the spotlight after the wedding, insinuating that I would just leech off Thomas' earnings. Unfazed, I couldn't comprehend how anyone could be satisfied with that. She declared her intentions to climb even higher on her own and find someone better than Thomas for an even grander wedding. With that rapid-fire monologue, a self-satisfied Alice left without giving me a chance to respond. As the staff walked in just after Alice's departure, I burst into laughter at the timing. Apologizing to the puzzled staff, I started changing, realizing that Alice knew how to keep things interesting. Since the wedding, I had no contact with her. I anticipated seeing her again, perhaps at Christmas when visiting my in-laws, but an unexpected connection with Alice arose sooner than expected. My father decided to seek external consulting for asset preservation and expansion at his company. Although I offered to handle it, he insisted on bringing in outside expertise, choosing a specific firm. Upon hearing the familiar name of the consulting firm during negotiations at my father's company, a sense of recognition washed over me, but I couldn't immediately place it. To my surprise, Alice was among the representatives of the firm, and the realization dawned that it was her company. We exchanged surprised glances, but silently agreed to act as if we were meeting for the first time, keeping our sister-in-law relationship a secret from the other team members. When I discussed the situation with Thomas at home, he already knew about it, expressing frustration. He suggested I step away from the project, but I found the situation amusing and laughed it off. Despite my amusement, I had to maintain professionalism during the negotiations. I pointed out flaws and inadequacies in their proposals, supported by logical reasoning that unsettled them. Alice tried to counter with past examples and mathematical evidence, but my responses exposed their weak points, leaving them silent. The meeting ended in my favor, with the other team agreeing to come up with a second proposal for the next meeting. As I relaxed with coffee after they left, I received a phone call meant for me. Answering the phone, it was Alice. She acknowledged my success, but declared that someone as excellent as her couldn't be bested by me. With a parting shot about not needing guidance from someone like me, she hung up. Bursting into laughter, I held the phone, drawing curious glances from nearby colleagues. From that point on, I took full control of the meetings, with their team often scrambling to respond to my points. Alice attempted comebacks but consistently fell short, her frustration visible. When I shared this with Thomas, he revealed that Alice had never been outdone by anyone before. Additionally, he mentioned that Alice had recently faced rejection from a guy she liked, compounding her irritation. I couldn't help but let out a surprised "huh" and stifle my laughter as the consulting project finally concluded successfully. The opposing team leader thanked us, expressing that they had learned a lot. And as everyone dispersed, Alice and I found ourselves alone. Alice, however, was not satisfied with the outcome. "I'm not satisfied with how things went. I'll make sure to get the better of you next time. Just so you know, I am more excellent. I even bought a tower mansion at my age. Only someone as outstanding as me could afford a brand new tower mansion," Alice declared, emphasizing her success as an investor. With that statement, Alice left, and Thomas later confirmed that what she said was true. Alice had indeed found success as an investor and recently bought a tower mansion to live on her own. While acknowledging her undeniable talent and the achievement within her reach, I genuinely wanted to congratulate her. A few days later, on the weekend, I had some business at a tower mansion. As I stopped at a certain mid-level floor, a door opened, and a resident stepped out. The resident and I locked eyes and both exclaimed in surprise. It was Alice. "Why are you here? If you're not invited to the party, did you come to clean?" I questioned. It seemed that today was the day of Alice's celebrity home party, as she had mentioned. "Not at all. I'm here to deliver something to an acquaintance on this floor." "You have an acquaintance here, and you came down from where?" Alice replied. "Well, my home is on the top floor of this mansion. Naturally, I had to come down." I countered, reminding her that she and Thomas lived in a single-story house because Thomas couldn't handle heights. Alice revealed that the tower mansion was her office and workshop. As we argued loudly in the hallway, a voice behind us asked, "Alice, what's going on?" Alice turned and said, "Sorry, Senior." The woman who had spoken and 3 other women looked at us with concern. "I apologize for not greeting you downstairs. I was just dealing with..." Alice seemed at a loss for words. The woman Alice called Senior looked at me, searching her memory, and exclaimed in surprise, "Aren't you Maya?" Alice was visibly confused. The senior explained, "Don't you know? This is Mrs. Mia, our new external board director starting this month. She's also known as the investment goddess whom Alice admires." Alice was speechless at this unexpected revelation, and the senior continued, "Also, she owns a significant share of your company, which made her a board director." Alice was overwhelmed by this unexpected turn of events. The senior added, "Alice, while extremely talented, has a poor reputation regarding teamwork and attitude towards colleagues. If she can't improve, she can't continue working in her current role." Alice was already knocked out by the harsh reality, kneeling and collapsed on the floor. Later, Thomas told me that Alice, once a fierce wolf, had become a small dog. It seemed she finally understood that there's always someone above her. Reflecting on my previous attitude, I felt a bit guilty for finding it all so amusing. Alice has become a lesson for me to never underestimate anyone and to treat others with respect. Thomas apologized for not being more involved in these events, but it's not his responsibility at all. His concern showed his good nature, and I love him all the more for it. My current hope is to start a family with Thomas soon. I can't wait to enjoy life as a family of 3. If Alice changes her mindset and broadens her perspective, she'll surely find friends and a partner soon. One night, I had a dream of a family of 3. And by the end of next year, we'll be a family of 5, triplets from the Cabbage Patch. I woke up sweating but couldn't help laughing at the prospect. Everyone aspires to be the best at something, but when this confidence transforms into taking others for granted, the universe might deliver a lesson. Understanding that there's always someone better out there is the key to humility, which is what truly defines the strongest individuals. My name is Mina, and I've been married to my husband Thomas for 2 years. When we decided to tie the knot, Thomas warned me about his troublesome sister, suggesting she might become a burden. As an only child, the prospect of having a sister excited me. But Thomas's words also sparked anxiety and curiosity about the kind of trouble she could bring. Now, 2 years into our marriage, I fully comprehend and have experienced what Thomas meant. I was born into a relatively wealthy family where my father runs a mid-sized trading company. He is well-informed and progressive in his thinking. My parents always respected my decisions, creating an environment where I could freely explore my interests. The 2008 Lehman Brothers collapse, when I was just an 11-year-old elementary school student, intrigued me. Witnessing the significant impact it had on the world and Japan, I became fascinated by how a disruption in the flow of funds could cause a global panic. This sparked my interest in researching financial circulation. Naturally curious and apparently quite intelligent, my parents had me take an IQ test, and the results exceeded the normal range. As I delved into this newfound interest, many aspects became clear, but my curiosity never waned throughout middle and high school. Continuing my exploration of this topic, I pursued a major in college that allowed me to deepen my understanding. As I delved further, my eagerness to apply my knowledge led me to venture into day trading, encouraged by my professor, who highlighted day trading as an excellent way to experience capital flow firsthand. I embraced the challenge, aware of the need for careful management to avoid debt. My research efforts were extensive as I identified statistically favorable stocks for day trading. Armed with a modest sum from all the allowances I had saved up, I engaged in buying and selling the same stock within the same day, with the goal of capitalizing on quick results. My predictions proved accurate, and though the initial increase was modest, I steadily grew my funds by repeating this process and gradually increasing my investment. In a year, I managed to amplify the initial amount by more than 50 times. While the sum may not have been significant on a larger scale, my primary concern wasn't about the magnitude of the achievement. What mattered most to me was whether the answers I had derived from my research were correct. During my university seminar, I encountered a student named Thomas, known for his analytical skills. Our shared perspectives on various topics drew us close, and after graduation, despite my initial plan to join my father's company, Thomas proposed an alternative path. He identified a job at a foreign investment firm, a proposition he presented on the day of our graduation ceremony. Following a celebration, Thomas confessed his feelings, and without hesitation, I said yes. His intelligence had always been a source of comfort, and his understanding nature made me feel at ease. As we both embarked on new journeys, gaining experience, our relationship continued to strengthen. Inspired by the concept of trade at my father's company, I dedicated myself to researching foreign companies to gain an advantage in negotiations and established a robust foundation for our deals. Thomas, with his inherent analytical skills, excelled in identifying profitable investment opportunities, earning high praise within his company. Despite our busy schedules, we maintained our connection through dates that provided refreshing breaks before diving back into our respective work. Over the 5 years of our relationship, we became indispensable to each other, evolving into a reliable support system. Deeply immersed in our exciting careers, we decided it was the right time to take the next step. Thomas proposed, expressing his desire to spend the rest of his life with me. Without hesitation, I accepted his proposal, eager to begin our life together. However, when it was time for a family meeting, Thomas disclosed something important about his sister, Alice. According to Thomas, Alice, his sister 2 years younger, was known for being challenging. He cautioned that she might cause some discomfort or inconvenience. Alice, exceptionally bright from a young age, developed a competitive spirit, looking down on others, including Thomas, whom she considered inferior. Even though Thomas was regarded as a prodigy, Alice claimed superiority, joining a rival investment and consulting firm to compete with him in her career. Thomas was worried that his engagement might affect Alice's pride, as she always sought to prove herself superior. Having no close friends and seemingly without a significant other, Alice appeared to harbor insecurities, masked by a brave face. Thomas was concerned about how she might react, fearing that she would intensify her efforts to demonstrate her strength in the face of our engagement. Attempting to reassure Thomas with a light-hearted "it's okay," proved ineffective as his worry seemed unending. This only heightened my curiosity about his intense sister, Alice. Finally meeting her at a family gathering, her sharp, intelligent beauty was unmistakable, though a certain coldness lingered. Whether that was intrinsic to her nature or a result of my preconceived notions, I couldn't discern. Thomas's parents, in contrast, were kind and humorous, putting me at ease about getting along with them. However, beyond the initial greeting, Alice remained silent, merely eating her meal while scrutinizing me as if assessing my worth. After the meeting, as everyone was leaving, Alice pulled me aside. Curious about the person I would be, she expressed disappointment, dismissing me as just a girl who secured a job at her parents' company and likely slacking off. She asserted her financial prowess, claiming to move large amounts of money and make significant profits, placing herself on a level far superior to mine. According to Alice, Thomas settling for someone like me was disappointing, and she concluded by stating that today's gain was realizing how much I fell short of her standards. Stunned and unsure how to respond, Alice left the room, leaving me there. Thomas returned, noticing I hadn't left with Alice. Concerned, he asked if something had happened. In response to Alice's jab, I laughed it off, assuring Thomas that it was just a minor comment. Thomas apologized for his sister's rudeness, but I reassured him that I wasn't bothered. It didn't hurt, but I couldn't help but wonder what would happen the next time we met, particularly at the wedding. Strangely, I found myself looking forward to it, anticipating the interesting dynamics that might unfold. Surprised by my response, Thomas and I went on to have a grand wedding attended by family, friends, and colleagues from both sides. We pledged our eternal love and reveled in the joyous occasion, but Alice appeared grumpy and irritated right from the start. Thomas had mentioned that Alice had neither friends nor a romantic partner, so I could somewhat understand her feelings, finding it slightly amusing. During a break for a wardrobe change, as I waited for the staff to assist me, Alice entered seemingly without reason. She remarked that my happiness was only for the day and predicted that, as a plain woman, I wouldn't get the spotlight after the wedding, insinuating that I would just leech off Thomas' earnings. Unfazed, I couldn't comprehend how anyone could be satisfied with that. She declared her intentions to climb even higher on her own and find someone better than Thomas for an even grander wedding. With that rapid-fire monologue, a self-satisfied Alice left without giving me a chance to respond. As the staff walked in just after Alice's departure, I burst into laughter at the timing. Apologizing to the puzzled staff, I started changing, realizing that Alice knew how to keep things interesting. Since the wedding, I had no contact with her. I anticipated seeing her again, perhaps at Christmas when visiting my in-laws, but an unexpected connection with Alice arose sooner than expected. My father decided to seek external consulting for asset preservation and expansion at his company. Although I offered to handle it, he insisted on bringing in outside expertise, choosing a specific firm. Upon hearing the familiar name of the consulting firm during negotiations at my father's company, a sense of recognition washed over me, but I couldn't immediately place it. To my surprise, Alice was among the representatives of the firm, and the realization dawned that it was her company. We exchanged surprised glances, but silently agreed to act as if we were meeting for the first time, keeping our sister-in-law relationship a secret from the other team members. When I discussed the situation with Thomas at home, he already knew about it, expressing frustration. He suggested I step away from the project, but I found the situation amusing and laughed it off. Despite my amusement, I had to maintain professionalism during the negotiations. I pointed out flaws and inadequacies in their proposals, supported by logical reasoning that unsettled them. Alice tried to counter with past examples and mathematical evidence, but my responses exposed their weak points, leaving them silent. The meeting ended in my favor, with the other team agreeing to come up with a second proposal for the next meeting. As I relaxed with coffee after they left, I received a phone call meant for me. Answering the phone, it was Alice. She acknowledged my success, but declared that someone as excellent as her couldn't be bested by me. With a parting shot about not needing guidance from someone like me, she hung up. Bursting into laughter, I held the phone, drawing curious glances from nearby colleagues. From that point on, I took full control of the meetings, with their team often scrambling to respond to my points. Alice attempted comebacks but consistently fell short, her frustration visible. When I shared this with Thomas, he revealed that Alice had never been outdone by anyone before. Additionally, he mentioned that Alice had recently faced rejection from a guy she liked, compounding her irritation. I couldn't help but let out a surprised "huh" and stifle my laughter as the consulting project finally concluded successfully. The opposing team leader thanked us, expressing that they had learned a lot. And as everyone dispersed, Alice and I found ourselves alone. Alice, however, was not satisfied with the outcome. "I'm not satisfied with how things went. I'll make sure to get the better of you next time. Just so you know, I am more excellent. I even bought a tower mansion at my age. Only someone as outstanding as me could afford a brand new tower mansion," Alice declared, emphasizing her success as an investor. With that statement, Alice left, and Thomas later confirmed that what she said was true. Alice had indeed found success as an investor and recently bought a tower mansion to live on her own. While acknowledging her undeniable talent and the achievement within her reach, I genuinely wanted to congratulate her. A few days later, on the weekend, I had some business at a tower mansion. As I stopped at a certain mid-level floor, a door opened, and a resident stepped out. The resident and I locked eyes and both exclaimed in surprise. It was Alice. "Why are you here? If you're not invited to the party, did you come to clean?" I questioned. It seemed that today was the day of Alice's celebrity home party, as she had mentioned. "Not at all. I'm here to deliver something to an acquaintance on this floor." "You have an acquaintance here, and you came down from where?" Alice replied. "Well, my home is on the top floor of this mansion. Naturally, I had to come down." I countered, reminding her that she and Thomas lived in a single-story house because Thomas couldn't handle heights. Alice revealed that the tower mansion was her office and workshop. As we argued loudly in the hallway, a voice behind us asked, "Alice, what's going on?" Alice turned and said, "Sorry, Senior." The woman who had spoken and 3 other women looked at us with concern. "I apologize for not greeting you downstairs. I was just dealing with..." Alice seemed at a loss for words. The woman Alice called Senior looked at me, searching her memory, and exclaimed in surprise, "Aren't you Maya?" Alice was visibly confused. The senior explained, "Don't you know? This is Mrs. Mia, our new external board director starting this month. She's also known as the investment goddess whom Alice admires." Alice was speechless at this unexpected revelation, and the senior continued, "Also, she owns a significant share of your company, which made her a board director." Alice was overwhelmed by this unexpected turn of events. The senior added, "Alice, while extremely talented, has a poor reputation regarding teamwork and attitude towards colleagues. If she can't improve, she can't continue working in her current role." Alice was already knocked out by the harsh reality, kneeling and collapsed on the floor. Later, Thomas told me that Alice, once a fierce wolf, had become a small dog. It seemed she finally understood that there's always someone above her. Reflecting on my previous attitude, I felt a bit guilty for finding it all so amusing. Alice has become a lesson for me to never underestimate anyone and to treat others with respect. Thomas apologized for not being more involved in these events, but it's not his responsibility at all. His concern showed his good nature, and I love him all the more for it. My current hope is to start a family with Thomas soon. I can't wait to enjoy life as a family of 3. If Alice changes her mindset and broadens her perspective, she'll surely find friends and a partner soon. One night, I had a dream of a family of 3. And by the end of next year, we'll be a family of 5, triplets from the Cabbage Patch. I woke up sweating but couldn't help laughing at the prospect. Hello, I am a single woman in my 60s. Since childhood, I held on to the belief in a reciprocal philosophy, thinking that my hard work and dedication would be met with equal effort in return. This mindset extended to my relationships, where I believed treating others kindly would result in receiving kindness in return. Even after marriage, I continued to hold this belief, assuming that by being considerate to my husband, he would reciprocate. In today's world, women aren't expected to sacrifice as much. But during my era, societal expectations were different. I willingly made sacrifices for my husband and children, confident that my efforts would contribute to future happiness. However, my marriage and family life didn't unfold as expected. Despite my early mornings and diligent work for the family, complaints and mistakes overshadowed appreciation. At that time, no one mandated that I live this way. I was an ordinary person who married a coworker 4 years my senior due to societal expectations. Despite the societal norms for married women to quit their jobs, I became a full-time housewife after giving birth to my daughter. I had no regrets. I believed it was a natural course of action for family life. Though my life wasn't glamorous like TV dramas, it felt easy and stable. Around my daughter's 9th grade, tragedy struck when my mother passed away suddenly from a heart attack. While mourning her loss, I discovered my husband's affair. In the midst of my grief, he found joy elsewhere, becoming uncaring and eventually demanding a divorce. Despite my determination to avoid divorce, my husband's behavior became unbearable. Divorce wasn't as socially acceptable back then, and despite an irresponsible and unkind husband, I resisted the idea. Looking back, I realized my naivety, but more was at stake. My daughter, witnessing the turmoil, felt the impact. Despite my refusal to divorce, I found myself in a deeply miserable situation. During a heated argument about our impending divorce, my father unexpectedly visited. Witnessing the distress in our relationship, he offered me a place to live and encouraged me to leave my husband, taking my daughter with me. Having recently lost his wife and observed his daughter in an unhappy marriage, my father convinced me that persisting in such a difficult situation was futile. Feeling the weight of his concern, I yielded to my husband's request for a divorce. In return, my husband provided me with $3,000 in cash. With my father's support, I secured a 2-bedroom townhouse to live in with my daughter, starting anew. I anticipated the need to work hard to support my daughter, fearing judgment from society for being a divorced woman with a daughter. This concern was particularly heightened as my daughter entered adolescence. During this challenging period, my daughter expressed typical desires of her age, lamenting the perceived consequences of her parents' divorce. Despite the emotional hurt, I knew I couldn't dwell on them forever, determined to provide for my daughter. I embarked on the journey of seeking stable employment. However, being an older divorced woman with a child made securing a job challenging. Undeterred, I took on multiple part-time and nighttime jobs, even engaging in freelance work at home whenever possible. As time passed, my daughter advanced to her senior year of high school. Despite financial constraints, she excelled academically, finding her own way to thrive. Motivated by my desire to ensure her future, I secured a job at a 24-hour restaurant, working 12-hour shifts. 2/3 of my earnings were diligently saved for her college tuition. Despite facing judgment and gossip, especially from some married men who viewed me as an easy target, I persevered for the sake of my daughter. The sacrifices were numerous, but my goal was to provide her with opportunities I never had. As she approached adulthood, I hoped she would understand the struggles I faced in raising her and making a living. Reflecting on these challenges, I realized that having a daughter made my situation both more arduous and meaningful. She became my anchor, giving me the strength to endure and persevere through life's challenges. I held on to the belief that, in the future, my grown daughter and I would share stories about the hardships we faced and take pride in our resilience. A year later, my daughter's outstanding performance in the SAT exams earned her admission to Harvard University, a moment of immense joy that made all the previous struggles worthwhile. As she embarked on her college journey, I felt a mix of pride and emptiness. Though I had managed to provide for her education and housing, the absence of her daily presence at home left a void. We maintained close contact through phone calls, and during the initial months of her independence, our bond deepened. Her newfound affection and connection were a source of comfort, and I cherished our evolving relationship. Despite the challenges, my daughter graduated from college without financial setbacks, fulfilling a dream we had worked hard to achieve. Anticipating that we could live together again, I was surprised when she secured a job at a defense corporation and chose to live independently. To support her, I took a bank loan and contributed to the down payment for a condo near her workplace. While I aged and embraced a more unassuming appearance, my daughter thrived as a fashionable career woman. Witnessing her success brought immense happiness, reinforcing the idea that my sacrifices had borne fruit. I found contentment in her achievements, understanding the sentiment of people who say they forget hunger in moments of joy. Despite the financial support throughout her college years, the prospect of her wedding became a new financial responsibility. People questioned why I continued to struggle when my daughter was capable of self-sufficiency. However, I was determined to contribute to her wedding expenses to prevent any condescension from her future in-laws. The belief that sacrificing for her happiness would bring joy to both of us fueled my resilience. On the other hand, as my daughter dated, I noticed a growing distance between us. Initially hurt, I recognized that her adult life and relationships rightfully took precedence. I patiently waited for her to mature and open up to me, understanding that priorities shift during this phase of life. However, on her 27th birthday, I looked forward to celebrating with her. Yet she made it clear that she had plans with someone named Michael and dismissed any preparations. While she may have intended to convey that I needn't go to any trouble, I couldn't help but feel hurt. It was her birthday, a day that held immense significance for me as the day she was born, and her apparent indifference stung deeply. It was challenging to comprehend why my daughter considered spending money on her birthday a waste, given the tight budget. Despite her intelligence, her understanding of her own mother seemed distant. Despite my hurt feelings, I understood she was my only daughter, and I wanted to see her briefly on her birthday, even if it meant taking a day off work. On that day, I meticulously paid attention to my appearance before going to her workplace. However, what awaited me was an unexpected and emotionally charged encounter in the company lobby. I saw my ex-husband with his mistress, individuals I never wished to see again. Doubting how he found out and came there, I frantically called my daughter, only to be abruptly hung up on as she claimed to be busy with a meeting. Feeling dumbfounded, I turned around, only to hear my daughter happily calling her dad and embracing him with a bright smile. Her boyfriend seemed familiar with my ex-husband and his wife, adding to my fury. In that moment, I felt betrayed, as if the whole world conspired against me. Drained of meaning, I hastily left the scene. Reflecting on that day, I felt the desire to confront my daughter and ex-husband, but an overwhelming urge to escape prevailed. Despite my inner turmoil, I couldn't muster the courage to call my daughter. Unexpectedly, my daughter showed up at home one day, announcing her decision to get married and handing me an invitation card. The surprise turned into shock when I saw the names on the card. Although she was my daughter, I felt an intense urge to throw her out of the house. I questioned how she, my own daughter, could present such an invitation. I confronted her, expressing my hurt at being treated like a guest at her wedding, emphasizing my role as her mother. In response, my daughter apologized, stating she felt she had no choice. Despite her desire to marry Michael, she faced scrutiny from his parents over every detail about her. The situation left me grappling with complex emotions, torn between hurt and the desire to understand my daughter's perspective on her life-changing decision. The revelation from my daughter about her concerns regarding my divorced past and the challenges of being a single mother struck me deeply. She explained that revealing this truth could jeopardize her chances of marrying her boyfriend, as her potential in-laws might disapprove. In the face of this revelation, I couldn't help but express my frustration, reminding her of the sacrifices and struggles I endured to raise her. work at a restaurant, and fund her education. My daughter's response. However, her response stunned me. She dismissed the past, stating that her father and his new partner, the woman who played a role in breaking our family, had already met with her future in-laws. In her perspective, the present was what mattered most, and she prioritized her desire for a comfortable life over the difficulties we faced before. Feeling hurt and regretful, I spoke harshly to her for the first time in my life, expressing my disappointment in her attitude. In turn, she suggested that if I wanted to drop her from my life, I should repay her for the money I spent raising her. This exchange led to a heated argument, and she left my house in anger, proclaiming that we were now strangers. Devastated by the turn of events, I questioned the purpose of saving money for her wedding and felt a deep sadness when I looked at the wedding invitation she had left behind, with a different name printed where mine should have been. 3 years later, I received news that my father, who had been living independently to avoid burdening me, had fallen ill. Sadly, I learned about his condition only after his passing. The realization of being a poor daughter to him hit me hard. A few months later, I inherited a small condo where he had lived, a bittersweet reminder of the family ties and struggles that shaped my life. Upon realizing that I had money saved from my daughter's wedding in the savings account, I decided it was time to live for myself, even if it seemed somewhat late in life. I pondered the idea that in today's world, trusting only one child and sacrificing for them might not be the most fulfilling path. It was a realization that I should prioritize my own desires and needs before it became too late for me to enjoy life. As I contemplated this shift in perspective, a real estate broker and close friend from the restaurant where I worked suggested that I consider what I truly wanted to do. Despite societal expectations for women to sacrifice, I felt the desire to break free from that mold and live for myself. I harbored a feeling of regret and sorrow for the sacrifices I made over the years, and I yearned to pursue personal fulfillment. Inspired by my friend, I embarked on studying the real estate business and even delved into auction biddings. With some savings and money from selling my late father's condo, I seized the opportunity to take on a new challenge. In the surprising turn of events, I became a building owner overnight, residing in a prime location. 6 months later, after returning from a mountain climbing adventure, I found myself on the top floor of my building, now transformed into my home. Unexpectedly, someone knocked on my door, and I debated whether to pretend not to be home due to fatigue. However, curiosity prevailed, and I opened the door to find my pregnant daughter with a chubby-cheeked toddler in her arms. Tearful and distressed, she explained that she had been deceived by her husband, who turned violent and had affairs. Faced with impending childbirth and raising her young daughter, she sought refuge with me, despite my initial shock and the lingering hurt from our previous arguments. I couldn't turn my back on my daughter in need. She revealed that she had heard about my newfound success in real estate and wanted assistance. Despite the painful history between us, she pleaded for help, pointing out that she had a share in the money I had acquired from my wedding savings and inheritance. Caught between anger and compassion, I couldn't deny my daughter's plea for help. Despite her past actions, I recognized the vulnerability in her situation and knew that as a mother, I couldn't turn her away. The complexities of our relationship resurfaced, prompting me to grapple with the tangled emotions of love, disappointment, and the inevitability of family ties. I confronted her, saying, "I was the one who saved money for your education and your wedding, but you told me to get out of your life. Do I need to give you money now?" I only said that, but I didn't get any money back from you. It seems that in front of money, there is no use for the bond between a parent and a child. Now that you have money, you don't need a daughter, right? No matter what, I am still your daughter, so I have a right to your money too. I was once very proud of you, thinking that it was because of me that you were able to attend Harvard. But now I see that it was all in vain. I guess I was too busy making a living that I couldn't teach you to be a decent human being. I raised you as someone who is so selfish and can only think of yourself. I don't plan to give you one penny, so you can either go back to your husband or your wonderful father. You are too mean. Could you abandon your own daughter? Do you think other people would care for me at all? That wife already ran off with the money, and he has disappeared trying to look for her. If you abandon me, I'll become an orphan. Now I have a child and I'm pregnant, so how could you be so mean to me? Would you be happy if I died like that? When she screamed at me, I couldn't put up with her any longer, so I took out all the money I had in my wallet and threw it at her. Since you are acting so pathetic, I'll give you that. However, never come back to my house because I won't let you in. There's something that I learned in the meantime, just that your life is important. Now my life is important. You cannot put me in and out of your life at your whim. I coldly let my daughter and her child out of my house. Of course, I would not feel good about it since she was my daughter after all. However, I couldn't accept her because she still was as selfish as before, and I couldn't bury the past. However, I felt sorry for my little granddaughter, who was innocent and got kicked out together with her mom. After that, my daughter was too proud and never came to see me again. To be honest, I knew that she was such a daughter. So, has she repented for her past acts and begged me for forgiveness out of a quest? Pretending I was reluctant, but would have found ways to punish her wayward husband. But I was so disappointed that if she erased me from her life to marry her husband, she should have lived happily. Why did my husband and my daughter turn out that way, even though I lived a hard life? Now I see that the only person who is living a life the way I want to is only me alone. Thus, if anyone is living a life like I did on behalf of others, I want to say this one thing for sure. No matter how strong your relationship is with another person, be sure to take care of your life first. Even if everyone in this world betrays you, you will not betray yourself. In the end, happiness is not what you do for others, but what you do for yourself. I want to give that message through my story here. Even though it may seem like a life that's only felt half, I plan to try to fill that remaining half from now on for complete happiness. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope all goes well for you today, and good fortune will be with you. Please cheer for me and write your comments of wisdom in the comment section. Pressing like and subscribing is a big help to me. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Even if you attempt to trouble us, there's hardly any loss on your part, considering it's your funds, useless to poor people with lowly lineage. I sighed as I completed the final check. You're closing your account, right? Please, go ahead, I said with a tone that seemed mocking. Their eyes, filled with clear disdain, made me feel disgusted as they stared at us. I decided it was time to give those who judge others by their upbringing a taste of their own medicine. With that thought, I smiled. My name is Tiffany, a 29-year-old office worker. Currently, I'm living a peaceful life with my mom while working. My dad passed away from an illness when I was young. His chronic illness had worsened early. My father, who was involved in various businesses, was always busy with work, out early and back late. Even so, he treasured his family time, and I have fond memories of playing with him on his days off. Mom and I were initially shocked by Dad's death, but Mom, not wanting me to feel lonely, cherished our time together. Fortunately, when Dad fell ill, he made sure with the former CEO to secure enough funds for our livelihood. Thanks to that, I was able to go to college, and both Dad's and Mom's parents were very supportive, especially my paternal grandparents, who lived nearby, took great care of me when Mom was away at work. We still go back to both sets of grandparents for holidays like Christmas and spend time together. I am who I am today thanks to the support of many people. To give back, I went to a national university and got a job at a major company. I thought about working at the bank my dad was supposed to inherit, but I chose a career I loved. As you're being told, do what you love. I've already handed the bank over, don't worry about it. Thanks to a fulfilling home environment and the freedom to dive into hobbies, I had no interest in romance. But now, at a mature age, many of my friends are married with kids. This led me to think about marriage, and that's when a certain encounter happened. I never imagined this meeting would lead to a major incident. Hey, Tiffany, aren't you interested in love, huh? That was the starting point. A question from a colleague at work. We've been close since our rookie days. You know, I have an acquaintance who's struggling to find a match. He's well-educated and handsome. You're highly educated too, Tiffany. Maybe you'd like to meet him. I've always thought it's a waste for someone as eloquent as you, Tiffany. There are even a few people in the office who are after you. She has a wide network and always shares various stories. She's living with her boyfriend, whom she met at a party, and seems very happy. She's quite concerned about my lack of romantic involvement. I had even consulted her about marriage, leading to this arrangement. A few days later, I agreed to meet a man named Yves. The rendezvous was at a cafe, and as I waited nervously, a man approached me. Tiffany? Ah, yes, nice to meet you. You're Yves, right? I said, feeling a bit anxious. Yes, thank you for today. Yosef's expression was blank as he looked me over. It felt like he was sizing me up, and I was a bit taken aback. Then, taking a seat opposite me, he quickly started the conversation. What do you do for work, Tiffany? He inquired. I work in sales at a company. I've always enjoyed interacting with people and making use of my opinions, which is why I chose sales. I find it fulfilling, and I love the moments when customers are happy with their purchases. I replied, trying to ease the tension. What's the name of your company? He asked. I told him the name of my company. Upon hearing it, Is paused for a moment, then smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile, more like one of satisfaction. My company is quite a large enterprise with good performance. We're well trusted by our customers, he said, his tone slightly arrogant. Since he asked, I decided to return the question. What do you do, yes? At my question, Is snorted with pride and began to boast. I work at Sunrise Bank as a department head. Sunrise Bank is a really big bank, you know. The work is tough, not something ordinary people can handle. But since my dad is the CEO and I'm the successor, it's different for me. I felt a stir in my chest at Yosef's words. I was expecting a normal response, but Yosef's aggressively toned words made me feel uncomfortable. Indeed, Sunrise Bank is a major bank. I knew about Sunrise Bank due to a certain incident, but I was surprised to learn that East worked there as a department head. Wow, that's impressive. Sunrise Bank is a big place, isn't it? I flattered Yis on purpose. I saw no need to be rude, and though I thought this would probably be our last meeting, I figured it was better to be nice. Pleased with my flattery, Yis continued to boast about himself. Honestly, talking to him was painful. He did listen to me occasionally, but always turned the conversation back to himself, even making outrageous comments about his lack of romantic prospects. I'm quite popular, you know, but it's always people who don't match my family background or education level that come to me. I thought the problem might be his attitude, but I had already decided not to meet him again after informing my friend. As time passed, he still looked satisfied and made a suggestion. I'd really like to meet your parents, huh? But we just met today. That's exactly why parents' excellence is important, especially if we're going to date, right? Inside, I screamed. I had no intention of dating him, but he seemed oblivious to my discomfort and kept pushing forward. When are your parents in? Are you available? Ah, I'll have to discuss it with my mom. What about your dad? As Yeast pressed on, I felt a growing sense of disgust, but couldn't find the strength to cut him off. My dad passed away when I was young. At my words, Yis narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, waiting for him to speak, Yis just said, I see, and fell silent, pondering. Well, send me a date that works for you later. I'll adjust my schedule. No, thank you. Should we leave then? Before I could finish, Yis stood up. It felt like talking to someone from a different world, despite my reluctance. I had given him my contact information and even discussed meeting our parents. His disdainful look upon hearing about my father's absence bothered me. In the end, we agreed to meet again with our parents. When I explained this to Mom, she smiled. Riley, maybe you were just nervous because you haven't dated before, she said reassuringly. Maybe, but the way he spoke was weird. Well, his parents will be there, right? Just say no if it doesn't feel right. I'll be there too, I replied, feeling guilty. Thanks, Mom. Sorry for dragging you into this, I apologized. Mom laughed heartily. It's okay. No need for you to feel bad. Besides, I'm curious about Sunrise Bank, so let's see how it goes. So, Is and I've arranged a family meeting. At that time, I had no idea Is had planned the meeting for such a shocking purpose. On the day of the meeting, we arrived at the place Is had chosen. It was a fancy restaurant. It's a big place, isn't it? I remarked as we entered. Yes, it is, Mom agreed. Inside, our table was ready, but Is hadn't arrived yet. We entered and waited, and shortly after the scheduled time, Is and his family arrived. Sorry we're late. The traffic was terrible. Nice to meet you. Thank you for today. Yosef's family unapologetically took their seats. Irritated but not wanting to start a fight, I initiated the family meeting. After some time, Yosef's mom, Morgan, with a sly smile, spoke up. So, where is your father? Is he coming later? Huh? She inquired, looking around. I looked at Yes, but he just smirked dismissively and said nothing. I had already told him my dad was deceased. Morgan acted as if she didn't know, despite having agreed to meet our families. Mom quickly responded. In my stead, my husband passed away from illness when Tiffany was young. So today, I'm here as her mother, Mom responded with a calm smile. In contrast, Morgan raised her voice in an exaggerated manner. Oh my, Tiffany is from a single-parent family. Her words took me aback. Even after explaining that my father had passed away from illness, her tone clearly carried malice. Being from a single-parent family, life must be quite hard, huh? But she graduated from a public university. That's commendable, right? Really, but still, being from a single-parent family, wouldn't dating her be complicated? Ye's family's conversation left Mom and me utterly dumbfounded. Despite being present, they spoke so disrespectfully, mocking us as if being from a single-parent family was something bad. Such words weren't suitable for a first meeting. Angered, I retorted in a low voice, Excuse me, but after Dad passed away, Mom raised me with great care. I owe my current life to her. And isn't it rude to speak about someone like that when you just met, Tiffany? However, Morgan burst out laughing at my words. Rude, isn't it? More absurd for the daughter of a single parent to think about marrying into a high-class family. I'm not really into strong-willed women. This is pointless. There's no getting through to them. Thinking this, I just stared at them in disbelief. I had high hopes since she works at a major company. Well, you'll eventually carry on Sunrise Bank, so maybe she's not quite at your level. As they hurled more insults, I felt no need to listen anymore. Trembling with anger, Mom glared at them. Did you invite us here today just to look down on us? I've heard from Tiffany about the other day. You're enjoying berating us for being a single-parent family, aren't you? Her words took me aback. Even after explaining that my father had passed away from illness, her tone clearly carried malice. Being from a single-parent family, life must be quite hard, huh? But she graduated from a public university. That's commendable, right? Really, but still, being from a single-parent family, wouldn't dating her be complicated? Ye's family's conversation left Mom and me utterly dumbfounded. Despite being present, they spoke so disrespectfully, mocking us as if being from a single-parent family was something bad. Such words weren't suitable for a first meeting. Angered, I retorted in a low voice, Excuse me, but after Dad passed away, Mom raised me with great care. I owe my current life to her. And isn't it rude to speak about someone like that when you just met, Tiffany? However, Morgan burst out laughing at my words. Rude, isn't it? More absurd for the daughter of a single parent to think about marrying into a high-class family. I'm not really into strong-willed women. This is pointless. There's no getting through to them. Thinking this, I just stared at them in disbelief. I had high hopes since she works at a major company. Well, you'll eventually carry on Sunrise Bank. So maybe she's not quite at your level. As they hurled more insults, I felt no need to listen anymore. Trembling with anger, Mom glared at them. Did you invite us here today just to look down on us? I've heard from Tiffany about the other day. You're enjoying berating us for being a single-parent family, aren't you? It was the first time I heard her speak so sternly. Please stop with the accusations. It was just a little teasing, right? No one feels good being mocked, and all your remarks are condescending. We have no intention of listening to this any further. East family looked displeased at Mom's clear statement. Presumptuous for commoners, huh? Indeed, that may be the case. But this has made up my mind. Ye's family looked briefly surprised at Mom's words, then burst into laughter. They seemed to be thinking, what can you possibly do? Mom sighed and began to speak. Actually, we have funds deposited with your bank, but we don't wish to entrust them to people like you. Oh, really? But we don't know your name, so it can't be much, right? It's probably insignificant. That's right. Even if you try to trouble us with your fun, it won't really affect us. Low-class poor people are not needed. I realized that even Mom's last attempt at reconciliation was in vain. But they continued to speak disdainfully, unaware. I sighed and made the final confirmation. We're closing our account. Okay, go ahead. Yosef's family responded with mocking tones and clearly disdainful expressions as they looked at us. I thought to myself, let's make those who judge others by their background suffer a bit. I smiled at the thought. Is that so? Then we will proceed as such. And please consider this meeting never happened, Yosef's family declared. Of course, I replied calmly, knowing we had no intention of marrying into a family with such prejudices. Well then, we will take our leave now, Mom and I stood up. Oh, don't worry about today's bill. It's too expensive for you, they remarked. Is that so? Well then, with that, our family meeting ended. Later, I made a phone call. Weeks later, my mobile phone was flooded with calls from Yes. Of course, I had anticipated this and had no intention of answering. It was their own responsibility. I immediately blocked the number. A few days later, I received a call from Grandpa Kyle. Summoned by Kyle, Mom and I headed to Sunrise Bank in the meeting room. Ye's family, looking pale, was present. As soon as they saw us, Morgan stood up and rushed over to bow deeply. I am extremely sorry for what happened, she said. I didn't reply to Morgan's words, just smiled and began to speak. What exactly are you apologizing for? At my words, Morgan bit her lip hard, trembling with anger. That's understandable. There are too many things for which they should apologize. That's probably why she's feeling so frustrated. This whole situation started because I said we would close our account. That day, our account wasn't particularly large. Closing it wouldn't have caused much damage. But Kyle's case was different. Kyle managed the inheritance left by my dad at Sunrise Bank for our benefit. Kyle also had his own account there. If all accounts, including Kyle's and my dad's inheritance, were closed, it would total about $7,000 million. In other words, their disrespect decided the closure. And importantly, Kyle is the former CEO of the bank. Dad was supposed to take over the bank but passed away young, so the position went to Scott. I didn't know that Tiffany was related to the former CEO, Scott. Looking anxious, Yosef pleaded as if making an excuse. But that's no excuse. Even if they didn't know, their prejudice against our family is their own fault. You mean, if we were relatives, you would have treated us differently? Dad interjected. Hey, don't talk to Dad like that. It's your fault for not telling us from the start that your grandpa was the former CEO. I don't have any obligation to tell a stranger like you that. Besides, you were the one who started it and made fun of us, remember? I countered, causing Yosef to narrow his eyes in frustration. You insulted me knowing I was from a single-parent family. When I said I would transfer the bank due to insecurity, you told us to go ahead. We just did as we were told. But it's just that it may be just that for you. But have you ever thought about the feelings of someone whose family has been insulted? Silence fell. Morgan was trembling, looking hopeless, and Scott was hanging his head. But Yosef still seemed unconvinced, his face full of dissatisfaction. Getting all high and mighty just because people talk to you. Yosef remains unrepentant. At that moment, the door to the conference room opened and Kyle appeared. Seeing Kyle, Yosef's tone grew defiant, and Morgan turned even paler. Frozen in place, only Yosef glared at me. Even after giving you a chance to reflect, you're still only thinking about yourselves, Kyle said, his tone stern. It's not my fault. It's her. Watch your words. If you continue, you'll end up even more miserable. Yosef, silenced by Kyle's words, glared at me again. Then, as if resigned, he burst out, "No way. Who would think a single parent's relative was the former CEO? You knew I was the future CEO and came to the family meeting just to mock us." "Yosef, be quiet." Kyle glared sternly, causing Yosef to breathe heavily. "Future CEO, huh?" Kyle then turned his gaze to Scott, who shrunk even more under Kyle's stare. "I understand wanting to leave the bank to your son, but now that I know his mindset, it's impossible for him to continue as CEO." "That's ridiculous," Scott started to retort, but sat down again under Kyle's gaze. "You still don't understand that your attitude is the problem. Till I'm retired, the board will decide. If you have something to say it to them. Remember, we recorded the previous conversation, and this one. Don't forget that the voice recorder will serve as evidence." I took out a voice recorder in front of the three and pressed play. The recorder started playing back our conversation from the other day. "How dare you prepare something like that? It's unfair," Yosef exclaimed. "It was just a precaution, but remember, you forced me into this situation," I countered. Yosef had nothing to say in return, and their faces turned pale. "Thank you, we'll handle it from here," they said. So Mom and I left. Ultimately, Kyle didn't transfer the funds, at least not officially. Scott was removed from his CEO position, and Yosef was demoted. Seemingly unable to handle the blow to his pride, Yosef resigned voluntarily. Kyle's influence in the financial industry meant Yosef would struggle to find work in the same field again. Whether Scott knew this or not, he seemed determined to work until retirement, but Kyle said it would be tough for him both mentally and physically. Morgan, who used to wield power as the CEO's wife, apparently started part-time work to maintain her lifestyle, but her character likely made it hard for her to keep a job. "I'm really sorry," I said. "It's okay. You didn't know, right?" Mom replied. "I only shared what happened with a friend who introduced me to Yosef. She just heard about him through someone else and wasn't at fault." Mom was initially concerned about being a single parent, but I'm happy now and can live thanks to the support I've received. When I told her that, she smiled and said thank you. After everything was taken care of, Kyle told us to come over to his house again sometime. I'm really grateful for Kyle's help in resolving the situation. He was tough, but I'm happy now, so it's okay. "I have some good news for you," Mom said one day. "Really? It's not about dating again, is it?" I teased. "It's a friend of my boyfriend this time. He's definitely a good guy. I'm not interested in dating right now, but I'm satisfied with my current life. I want to keep cherishing those who support me. And maybe someday I'll meet someone I really click with." Don't act all high and mighty over a measly $12,000. You're useless. Try cutting off your financial support and see if I care. Even though I've been sending money to my brother and his wife for 10 years, why do they have to berate me like this? Fine by me. With that, I firmly hung up the phone. They should be the ones worried, not me. I won't help them anymore, no matter what happens. My name is Angela. I live with my husband Niles and our son Seth. Niles is incredibly kind. He actively helps around the house and spends quality time with Seth. I've been living a happy life, but I have a concern. It's about my older brother Freddie and his wife Isla, who live in our family home. Our mom, named Jean, retired and moved back home after Freddie and Isla declared they would take care of her. Growing up in a single-parent household, I was worried, so I gladly accepted Freddie's offer. To show my gratitude, I've been sending Mom $12,000 every month. But things seemed off after Freddie and Isla started managing the money. Whenever I forgot to send the money, Isla would angrily call me. Each time, I'd rush to transfer the funds. Mom's behavior also seemed strange lately. She's been distant on the phone, often comparing me to Freddie. Freddie has always struggled academically and isn't athletic. Mom used to complain about how Freddie didn't study as much as I did, but now the tables have turned. I didn't understand why Mom's attitude changed, but I never stopped the financial support. At the beginning of a new month, Isla calls my cell phone as usual. "Did you forget this month's money? What's the deal?" she scolds. "I'm sorry. I'll transfer it right away." "You're so clumsy. How do you even manage to raise a child?" Isla berated me, urging me to transfer the money quickly. I felt like I was being extorted and uneasy about the whole situation. Is this how financial support is supposed to work? Isla's aggressive behavior started when she first met our family. The first time she saw me, she scoffed. "Who's this plain girl? Freddie's sister? No way." I was taken aback. I never expected such a comment from someone I just met. Mom defended me, and I remember that clearly. Isla's attire was a miniskirt and a flashy leopard print jacket. "Isn't it inappropriate to wear that to meet your fiance's family?" I thought so, but I didn't say anything. Isla's behavior only escalated from there. I vented to my husband, who was also upset. I found solace, but the idea of having her as family was disconcerting. However, Freddie wasn't the most sensible person either, so I assumed I'd get used to it. Their behavior worsened after moving into the family home. I wondered if Mom was okay living with them, but with work and raising Seth, I couldn't visit Mom and was left in the dark about the details of her well-being. Amidst our busy lives, Mom suddenly called at the end of the month as usual. I had just dropped my son off at the child care center and was about to head to work when I received a phone call from her. "What's wrong?" I asked, but Mom sounded furious. When I asked her to explain, she said something outrageous. "Where's this month's money?" I was shocked. I had already sent the money at the beginning of the month. I told her I transferred it to Freddie's account, but she angrily claimed she hadn't received it. Surprised, I asked her to check again, but she wouldn't listen. "You've become so irresponsible after all I did to raise you. Right now, you're sending less money. You're so ungrateful." I did send the $12,000. Enough excuses. Send the $12,000 now. If I don't get it next month, I'll cut ties with you. Learn from Freddie. He always sends $500 on time. Why am I expected to send $1.02 to 000 when Freddie only sends $500? Angry, I yelled back that I did send the money and hung up. It might have been a bit childish, but I wanted to be clear about the money. If Mom's going to unfairly scold me again next month, I need to check in with my brother. There's a chance his wife is up to something. Determined, I headed to work, my footsteps echoing with frustration. The next month, as usual, I got a call from my sister-in-law. "Did you forget this month? I always tell you to transfer at the beginning of the month, don't I?" I asked her about Mom's behavior last month, to which she responded, "Oh, she might have been a bit upset, but I leave everything about Mom to Freddie. If you're concerned, ask him. More importantly, make sure you transfer the $1.02 to 000. Got it?" She hung up without waiting for an answer. Taking her advice, I decided to contact my brother. "Hey, I wanted to talk about Mom," I said. He responded with annoyance. "What now?" I told him about the angry call from Mom last month and how she was upset about not receiving the money. To my shock, he said, "We're struggling too." Since moving back home, we decided to give Mom $500 from your $12,000 and $500 from my salary. We used the rest this month. We had some extra expenses, so we used all of your $1.02 to 000. I was stunned. I couldn't fathom that my money was being used by my brother instead of Mom. Filled with anger, I confronted him, but he skillfully dodged my questions, leaving me feeling helpless. I hung up, contemplating whether I should inform Mom about the situation. Calling her, I relayed everything my brother had said, but she refused to listen. "You're just making excuses. You probably didn't send the money this month either. I sacrificed so much for you, and this is how you repay me," Mom said, tears streaming down her face. Feeling helpless, I asked Mom to switch to a video call to prove that I had properly transferred $12,000. Mom hesitated but eventually switched to a video call. I displayed my bank card with the transaction history, hoping she would understand. However, Mom remained skeptical. "You probably faked this. I heard on the news that it's easy to make these things now. Just pay this month's amount, and we'll talk after that," she insisted. I transferred the $12,000, hoping that it would resolve the issue. Mom, acting high and mighty, demanded to see my brother's bank card as well before hanging up. Trusting Mom and my brother, I transferred the money for the current month, believing that she would realize I was right. However, a few days later, I received another angry call from Mom. Confused, I waited for her to explain. She angrily claimed that she hadn't received the money for this month and was struggling to make ends meet. I insisted that I transferred the money on the day I called her and suggested checking with my brother. When I called my brother, he responded gruffly, claiming that Isla had the bank card, and it was none of my business how they used the money. Frustrated, I contacted my sister-in-law, who nervously laughed and admitted, "Oops, got caught. I saw the transfer from you and immediately withdrew the $12,000 to buy a designer bag. I plan to repay it soon, but I work part-time and haven't received my paycheck yet." I was incredulous. That money was intended for Mom, not for their leisure. Angrily, I demanded she return the $12,000. However, my sister-in-law snapped back, "Don't act all high and mighty over just $1.02 to 000. You're useless. You're a full-time worker. You must have more money. Just transfer another $1.02 to 000. I was furious. I couldn't believe my money was being used like this. That weekend, I went straight to my parents' house, and my brother and sister-in-law seemed surprised by my sudden visit. Mom welcomed me in, asking if I brought the money. I stated that I had transferred the money and wanted to confirm it, intending to see my brother's bank card. When I confronted my sister-in-law, she made a disgusted face. "Ila, you have the bank card, right? Show it to me." "Why should I show it to you?" "Because I transferred $12,000 to my brother's account," I insisted. However, she refused to show me. "You said you'd return it, right? You've received your paycheck by now, haven't you?" When I glared at her, she tried to dodge the question. "You're trying to blame me for not transferring, aren't you? I've transferred it properly." As we argued, Mom shouted in anger, "Angela, enough. I thought you brought the money. Ila would never misuse it." She pushed me towards the door. "If you came here for that, then go home. You're no longer my daughter." In my anger, I retorted, "Fine, I'll stop sending money. You might not know, but my brother and his wife aren't as good as you think. They told me they only give you $500 out of the $1.02 to 000 I send. They're deceiving you." "You're lying." "Then I won't send money anymore," I declared. My brother sneered, "Go ahead and stop. If you do, we're done." Gladly, I left my family home with those words. "I'm done. I won't help them anymore, no matter what happens." When I told my husband about what happened at my family home, he comforted me, saying, "Angela, you've been sending $12,000 for 10 years. It's okay to stop. Don't worry about it. Plus, your brother and his wife are there, right? They'll manage somehow." "You're right. I'm sorry it came to this. It's okay. It's not your fault. Besides, sending money is a gesture of goodwill, right? Everyone's an adult. If they wanted to, they could get full-time jobs. You don't need to worry about them." Hearing that from my husband, I felt reassured. Right. Sending money is a matter of goodwill. My brother is an adult and has ways to earn money. I don't need to support my brother and mom's life, nor should I be forced to. I guess I've always felt obligated because I've been cleaning up after my brother and mom's mistakes for so long. I've always wondered why you had to take care of your family and brother. It seemed strange, but I thought you were okay with it. Then it was fine. But now your family is me and Seth, right? You can help your family and brother if something happens. But you don't need to guarantee their livelihood every month. Hearing that from my husband felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Then, in the middle of the next month, my mobile phone rang incessantly. It was my brother and his wife. I had planned to sever ties with them, so I was curious about the call. Hello? Why didn't you send money this month? I told you I'd stop. Besides, you don't need it. You have each other, huh? Are you sure about that? We're done. I have nothing to do with you anymore, I said, hanging up. That evening, my sister-in-law was waiting outside my house when I returned from work, holding my son's hand. I was taken aback as she approached me aggressively, berating me in the hallway of my condo. Do you think you can get away with this? What do you mean? We've cut ties. Don't come here again. Hearing that, she stomped her foot in anger, yelling and cursing. Someone from the neighborhood must have called the police because they arrived shortly after. She was taken away by the police. In disbelief, I immediately called my brother. Lus stormed into your place and got arrested. Why did that happen? It's cruel of you to call the police. We're family. I didn't call them. Someone else did. Can you please have her stop asking for money? It's a bad influence on my son, and I don't want anything to do with you anymore. When I firmly responded, my brother went silent and then began pleading in a weak voice. Look, I work part-time, and Ula works part-time too. Mom's pension is small, and we can't live without your $12,000. You get that right. Most of the $12,000 goes to Ula's leisure, so you should be fine, right? No, it's not like that. Sure, she spends a bit recklessly. But we need the $12,000 for our lives. Please send it this month. Why should I support you? You probably only give Mom $500 anyway, I replied, hanging up. I decided never to answer calls from my brother or sister-in-law again. I received many texts from my brother, but I only looked at them and ignored them. My sister-in-law kept trying to contact me, which was annoying. But maybe because she was arrested, she didn't come to my house. A few months later, I finally got a call from Mom. Angela, Freddie hasn't been giving me money lately. I'm struggling. I was mad before, but I realized I only have you. Mom's voice sounded weak. She then started complaining about how my brother and his wife had been treating her lately. They're terrible. They don't even give me $500 now, and they're living off of my pension. I told them to get full-time jobs if they need money, but they don't listen. Lud is hardly ever home. What should I do? Mom began to cry in a heartbroken voice. However, I didn't feel sympathy for her. I had trusted both Mom and my brother, but they betrayed me. On top of that, they told me we were done to begin with. I went to college without borrowing money from Mom. I even paid off my brother's student loans that Mom had been burdened with. That's more than enough. Mom, if you don't want your pension taken by them, why not kick them out of the house? They're adults. They can manage on their own. I gave that piece of advice and ended the call with Mom. She seemed to want to say more, but I had made up my mind not to get involved. They can figure things out on their own. I have my own challenges to deal with. In the end, it seems Mom kicked out my brother and his wife because of their terrible attitude. Having been evicted, they apparently moved into an old apartment. Since that incident, Mom hasn't been very involved in my life, perhaps feeling awkward. Once my brother called, he kept trying to contact me, and when I answered, he said they were in debt because of his wife's excessive spending. He asked for help, but I ignored him. I no longer see Mom, but I live happily with my son and husband.
My daughter is joining the company, so I need you to resign. Today is your last day." On the morning of the 20th, the president suddenly told me I was fired. I was shocked and didn't know what to say. The 20th was the day we paid our suppliers. Some payments were made through bank transfers for longtime suppliers, but I also made direct payments and visited them as a courtesy. "You look like you can go home right away. I'll give you the day off, just for you, so leave quickly," the president said. He pushed me out of the office, and the door shut with a snap right in front of my face. I didn't even know where to start to argue. My name is Emily. I joined this family-owned paving company right after high school and worked as a clerical worker for 10 years. Well, until just now. The company had about 20 employees, and when the current chairman was the president, the workplace atmosphere was great. It was an easy place to work. The chairman, now retired, used to work closely with the younger employees, and his wife, Catherine, would come in every day to help with various tasks until he was hospitalized. Their daughter, Kelly, was skilled in both field and office work. Her husband was the site manager and was trusted by the on-site employees. Even though they were the founding family, they never acted superior or looked down on the employees. It would have been wonderful if this enjoyable and smooth-running company life had continued, but unfortunately, reality wasn't so kind. At the end of last year, the chairman was diagnosed with cancer during the company's group medical examination. He decided to retire as president and appointed Kelly's husband, the site manager, as the next president. Both the employees and I unanimously agreed. We all thought the chairman should focus on his treatment and wish for his long life. However, suddenly, the chairman's eldest son, Tom, appeared with his family. I didn't know where he heard the news from. It turns out the chairman had another child besides Kelly. Tom had been disowned about 30 years ago, and I didn't know about it at all. According to the senior employees, Tom was a troublemaker in his youth and often had run-ins with the police. Whenever he caused problems, the chairman and Catherine would go and apologize. After dropping out of high school, he got involved in multi-level marketing and fraudulent activities, which finally led the chairman to disown him. Despite being out of touch for a long time, Tom suddenly appeared one day, pleading with his father, "Dad, I've realized my mistakes. Please forgive me." I was shocked to witness this in our small company, where the president's office and clerical room were one and the same. Tom expressed a desire to reconcile and work in the company, but his past made it hard to believe his sincerity after being disowned. "I apologize to everyone, but I ask you to give Tom another chance," the chairman said, pleading with everyone present. Kelly and the senior employees knew about Tom's troubled history and couldn't fully celebrate, but they couldn't refuse the chairman's heartfelt request either. So Tom and his family moved into the annex of the chairman's house, with Tom becoming an employee and his wife taking on household duties. I saw their daughter only once when she visited the company. She seemed to be a college student. The chairman believed Tom had changed for the better after facing hardships in life. Catherine was overjoyed that Tom had returned with his family, talking about rebuilding the company together. However, soon after, a problem emerged. Tom insisted on something. "I'm the eldest son, so I should be the next president," declared Tom, straining his relationship with Kelly and the site manager. Despite pretending to work diligently in front of the chairman, Tom actually did very little. He frequently made demeaning remarks like, "Physical labor is for the workers, and you're all just worker ants, work silently." Naturally, his behavior quickly made him unpopular with everyone. Some of the younger employees even went directly to the chairman, saying, "I can't work under these conditions." However, both the chairman and Catherine pleaded with everyone, saying, "We will talk to Tom about this. Please try to see the bigger picture." Then, due to stress or other reasons, the chairman's cancer suddenly worsened and he was hospitalized 3 months ago. Tom declared, "I am the president." Despite employees advising the chairman and Catherine to stick with their original plan of appointing the site manager as president, they ultimately chose Tom, their biological son, over their daughter's husband. This decision sparked grumbling among some employees, who felt the chairman and Catherine were biased by parental love or losing their sharpness with age. The once harmonious company atmosphere turned tense and uncomfortable. As tensions grew, Kelly and the site manager began working behind the scenes to manage the company. This left me alone handling all administrative tasks, whereas before Catherine, Kelly, and I shared the workload. Now, I regularly work overtime, sometimes leaving so late that the date changes before I head home. Meanwhile, Tom seems to view administrative duties as effortless, spending his days at hostess bars, betting on horses, or gambling. My relationship with the president took a serious downturn over an expense issue. He had been using the company's credit card for personal dining and entertainment expenses, and I had been overlooking it to some extent. However, this time, the expense crossed a line. With apprehension, I handed the receipt back to him. "I can't approve this expense," I told him. "What? Why not?" he demanded. "This is for your wife's corrective underwear. It's not related to business, so it can't be expensed." As expected, the president's face flushed with anger. "Don't challenge me. She's the president's wife. It's natural for her to dress well. This is a valid expense." "No, that's not how it works. Your wife's underwear can't be considered a business expense." I stammered, struggling to comprehend how the president could justify a $4,000 expense for his wife's corrective underwear. His next suggestion left me even more bewildered. "Then let's turn selling corrective underwear into our new business venture. We'll categorize it as inventory so it counts as an expense." The president seemed pleased with his idea, but I was at a loss for words. "We're a paving company," I managed to say. "So what? We can threaten clients that if they don't buy from us, we'll cancel their contracts. Everyone will buy. It's easy money, $2,000 for one, $4,000 for a set." The president chuckled loudly, but I felt horrified. "That's absolutely unacceptable. It will damage our credibility." I snapped at him in anger. From that moment on, I became the target of the president's disdain. Day after day, I endured constant berating from him. The situation became so difficult that I considered quitting many times. However, I continued to endure and work, driven by my loyalty to the chairman who had always supported me and my concern for the team who would struggle if I left. The truth was, I couldn't afford to lose my job suddenly either. I decided to tough it out until the right moment to move on. But then, unexpectedly, I was fired. If I quit abruptly now, it will cause problems for our clients, I thought to myself. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my courage and confronted the president. "I can't do this. I can't just leave without proper notice and handover. Even your daughter wouldn't be able to handle the workload. Besides, today is the day we need to handle payments," I said in one breath, fully expecting the president to erupt in anger. As expected, the president's face turned red with anger. "Shut up. I told you to resign because my daughter is joining the company. Today is your last day. As for the payment, let them wait until they come to collect it. There's no need to pay them up front." "Excuse me, isn't it normal to pay for something once you buy it?" I was shocked and explained it patiently, as if talking to a child. But the president responded with something so unreasonable that I couldn't believe he was being rational. "If that's the case, just threaten to switch suppliers. Tell them we won't make the payment this time, so they should give it to us for free." "What? That's not something we can do, is it?" I was so stunned that I couldn't find the right words to respond. "You're completely useless. My daughter has a college degree. She can handle office work easily. As family, she won't question my expenses like you do. You're all talk and no action. We don't need someone like you in our company. Leave now," the president sneered. It seemed clear he intended for his daughter to handle accounting so he could justify personal expenses as business expenses. "Oh, is that so? Just remember, I won't regret this," I replied. Words were futile at this point. My patience had worn thin. I quickly gathered my belongings and left the company, feeling sorry for our clients. I called Kelly, despite knowing Catherine and Kelly were busy with the chairman. This was urgent. I explained everything and trusted the rest to Kelly. Once I left the company, I suddenly found myself with nothing to do. Being fired without notice clearly violated labor standards laws. If I reported this to the Labor Standards Office, the company would be in trouble. Since our company was part of the middle company payment system, I could claim my severance pay and 1 month's salary. This system supports small and medium-sized enterprises that can't afford severance pay on their own. I didn't need to rush because I could apply within 5 years from my retirement date, and the Labor Standards Office had a 2-year statute of limitations. With my professional habits, I planned out the necessary procedures and timeline for retirement. I decided I could take it easy for at least a week. Lately, I had been working overtime and weekends nonstop, leaving no time for myself at home. There were many places I wanted to visit once I settled down. so I chose to go on a day trip to the beach for a refreshing break. After enjoying myself at the beach, I checked my phone in the locker and found several missed calls, emails, and voicemails. Among them, Kelly's email caught my attention. It said, "The payment process went smoothly. Everything is in order." I felt relieved. Despite the abruptness of my dismissal by the president, I couldn't shake the guilt of leaving my job in anger. Next, I listened to the voicemail from the company. It was the panicked voice of the president saying, "Hey, what's going on? They're saying I'm not the real president. Did you know about this? Explain yourself." After chuckling at his realization, I continued to check my emails and voicemails. Among them was a message from the chairman, so I promptly headed to the hospital. Arriving at the hospital room that evening, I found Catherine and the president already there. As soon as the chairman saw me, he greeted me from his bed. "Emily, I'm truly sorry for my foolish son." "Hey, what's going on? I'm not the official president. Explain yourself." Tom shouted arrogantly, clearly not understanding the situation. The chairman quickly silenced him with a stern command. "Quiet down." It turned out that right after I had called Kelly, she promptly informed the chairman and Catherine. Upon receiving the news, the chairman immediately contacted Tom, who was acting as president, and asked, "Do you really not know anything? So what's the truth?" I calmly explained to the president, who was still shouting in confusion. "Essentially, Tom, you didn't have any legal authority. Your role as president was just a title. It might seem confusing, but in business terms, president is a position within the company and doesn't hold legal standing like a representative director does. The representative director is the one legally responsible for the company's actions externally. It's a different and more formal role that requires specific legal procedures to change." I continued, "While the title of president can be changed informally within the company, altering the representative director involves complex legal processes. That's why your position didn't carry the legal weight you assumed it did." 3 months ago, when Tom was appointed president, there was strong opposition from Kelly, the site manager, and veteran employees. That's when I proposed a strategy. Tom would be a figurehead president while the chairman remained the legally responsible representative director. As someone familiar with company procedures and laws, I knew the complexities involved. Under my plan, if Tom showed genuine dedication and won over all employees, then we would initiate the legal process to formalize his presidency. However, if Tom failed to prove himself fit for the role, the backup plan was to either remove him or even consider closing the company, while Kelly and the site manager prepared to launch a new venture. Kelly doubted Tom's ability to change. The chairman and Catherine continued to believe in Tom until he unfairly dismissed me, which seemed to awaken them to his shortcomings. "If you want to be a leader, learn and take care of your employees. I've told you this many times," the chairman emphasized. Tom retorted, "It's not a big deal, right? Can't we just handle the procedures now?" "No, it's not possible," the chairman explained. "Our company offers stocks to employees who want them, and many of them own shares. Emily owns 10%, making her a major shareholder. We can't disregard her views, and other shareholders won't support you either." As the president began to understand the gravity of the situation, his face paled. "What? I don't have any shares." "None. I plan to pass on my shares to you once you prove yourself as president. I'm deeply disappointed in you. Were you only interested in my wealth, thinking I didn't have much time left?" The chairman slumped in despair, and Catherine remained silent, visibly upset. Defiantly, the president responded, "Well, I'm the eldest son. What's wrong with taking what's rightfully mine? The company belongs to me. I can't forgive you anymore. The chairman bears full responsibility as the representative director of this company. Moreover, I'm a shareholder. I have the right to call for a shareholders' meeting and propose your removal," I asserted firmly. The president's face drained of color as he grasped the implication of removal. "You mean I could be fired? Dan, you were just a clerk." "Tom, Emily is right. At this point, no one will support you. Emily was the only one who spoke up to give you a chance," Catherine interjected. Then Catherine turned to me. "Emily, I owe you a sincere apology. I regret causing you trouble because of my love for my son. Please tell me what you'd like to do." I confronted the president directly. "Mr. President, I no longer wish to work under your leadership, so I am resigning immediately. However, I expect to receive my severance pay, along with 1 month's salary including unpaid overtime and holiday pay. As a shareholder, I will also take action through the Labor Standards Office to remove anyone who is detrimental to the company. I spoke calmly, and as I did, the president's complexion shifted from pale to completely white. Continuing, I informed them how Kelly had been actively visiting clients and successfully promoting our new company. Many clients had already decided to switch from our current company to the new one, and most of our employees were planning to follow suit. "That's impossible. I'll sue you," the president threatened, his voice cracking. But the chairman intervened firmly. "I am the representative director. You have no such authority." The president collapsed to his knees, and I felt a mix of emotions: regret, disappointment, and a sense of closure. "Mr. President, it's unfortunate it had to end this way. If you had changed your approach upon returning, things might have been different. There were ample opportunities for understanding if you had made efforts to learn and adapt. Ultimately, it was the president himself who squandered those chances. A classic case of reaping what one sows." In the aftermath, the chairman decided to shut down the company, leaving Tom unemployed. The president's wife attempted to sell corrective underwear, but it didn't succeed. They faced legal issues for aggressive sales tactics and were eventually arrested for involvement in a pyramid scheme. When Kelly returned to her parents' home, she found boxes of unsold underwear left behind. As for the daughter, she found employment elsewhere, although the specifics are unknown. I now work happily at Kelly's and the site manager's new company. I cherish my relationships with others and strive to live authentically each day. I walked into the house after a long day at work, eager to relax, but something didn't feel right. The usual peace I hoped for was missing. As I passed by our small office, there he was, Greg, my husband, sitting at the desk, papers spread out in front of him. And not just any papers, my personal files, bank statements, and journals. The realization hit me like a punch. My heart pounded as I tried to make sense of what he was doing. What are you doing, Greg?" I asked, my voice quivering with a mix of anger and disbelief. He looked up slowly, not the least bit apologetic. "Just checking on things, Emma," he replied calmly, his tone patronizing. "With the baby coming, I need to know everything's in order." His nonchalance stirred a deep anger within me, one I had tried to bury for too long. "You have no right to go through my things," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to hold onto whatever shred of respect I had left for him. Greg barely flinched. Instead, he leaned back, crossing his arms as if I were the one overreacting. "Emma, your finances are our finances. If there's a problem, it's my business too. You're about to be a mother, and you're acting like I don't have a right to know. Don't we all need to be responsible here?" His words were smooth, like he'd rehearsed them, but the look in his eyes was hard. He was crossing a line he didn't even seem to see. But it wasn't just about today. This was about the months I'd spent watching Greg and his mother, Susan, slowly take control of my life, invading my personal space, my decisions, and even my thoughts. That evening, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, Greg snoring peacefully beside me, while my mind raced, replaying our conversation and every red flag I'd ignored. Since the moment Susan had moved in temporarily to help with the pregnancy, my life had felt like a tightrope walk. And yet, in every decision, Greg sided with her. If I wanted space, she needed to help. If I expressed a preference, I was being difficult. My wants and needs became secondary, and then, it seemed, they became invisible. The next day, I confided in my best friend, Rachel. We met at our usual coffee shop, a place where I felt like I could breathe. Rachel listened carefully, her eyes widening as I poured out everything I'd been holding back. The constant belittling, the passive-aggressive comments from Susan, the feeling of being trapped in my own home. "Emma," she said finally, her voice soft but firm, "you don't have to keep living like this. You're not alone. You deserve so much better than this. You deserve to be happy." Her words struck me, and a knot I hadn't realized was there loosened just a little. Rachel was right. I didn't have to keep suffering quietly, putting up with Greg's coldness and Susan's manipulations. That day, for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a life without them. A life where I had control over my choices, where I could raise my child in peace. I realized I needed help. I needed to find a lawyer and get my life back. A few days later, I walked into the office of a family attorney named Ben. The room was warm, filled with light from large windows, and the air felt calm and inviting. Ben looked to be in his mid-40s, with a kind smile and a reassuring presence. I felt a glimmer of hope as I sat across from him and explained my situation. "I feel like I'm constantly being watched," I said, my voice breaking as I described Susan's overbearing presence, Greg's constant siding with her, and how they both managed to isolate me from friends and family. "It's like they're trying to erase me." Ben listened intently, nodding with understanding. When I finished, he leaned forward. "Emma, you're very brave for coming here today," he said. "You're taking a necessary step for your well-being and your child's. But be prepared. Standing up to them won't be easy. They'll likely fight this." "I'm ready," I replied, and in that moment, I meant it. I can't keep living like this. In the following weeks, Rachel helped me gather documents and create a plan. Each piece of evidence, every journal entry, every carefully saved message felt like a piece of armor. There were nights when I felt like I couldn't go on, when the weight of my decision threatened to pull me under. But each time, I thought of my future, and I thought of my baby. One night, I sat down with my parents and told them everything. They had sensed something was wrong, but they hadn't known the extent. Their support was unwavering, and the pride in my father's eyes as he told me, "You're stronger than you know, Emma," gave me the resolve I needed. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. I barely slept, my stomach a bundle of nerves as I walked into the courthouse with Rachel and Ben beside me. The waiting area was filled with people, all facing their own battles. I tried to steady my breathing, reminding myself that this was my fight for freedom, for my life back. Greg and Susan were already seated when I entered the courtroom. Greg's face was hard, expressionless, while Susan's gaze was cold and sharp, her eyes calculating. She looked at me as though I were a stranger, but that's exactly what I'd become to her. I wasn't the submissive woman she wanted me to be. Ben leaned over and whispered, "Remember, Emma, you're here to tell your story, to claim back what's yours." I took a deep breath, feeling my strength return. I was ready. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the stand, my legs trembling but my mind sharp. I took a deep breath and started from the beginning. I married Greg because I loved him, and I thought we could build a life together. But things changed, I said, my voice steady. His mother moved in without asking me. Suddenly, every decision I made seemed to be a problem. I was treated like an outsider in my own home. The words came easier now, and I continued, describing the feeling of being pushed aside, of constantly being watched, of having every choice questioned and overruled. I shared how Susan would criticize every decision I made, how Greg would defend her no matter what, and how I'd been locked out of my own life. The judge listened intently, her gaze focused and empathetic. "This isn't just about a house or a marriage," I said, fighting back tears. "It's about the right to live freely and to raise my child in a home where I'm respected, where I'm safe." Greg's lawyer presented his side, painting me as overly sensitive, accusing me of trying to separate Greg from his family. They claimed Susan was only trying to help. But when I looked at the judge, I saw that she was listening, really listening to my words. She could see through their words, and that knowledge gave me strength. That night, just as I was beginning to feel some hope, Ben called. "Emma, we need to meet," he said, his voice serious. "Greg and Susan are planning to claim you're emotionally unstable. They're trying to prove you're unfit to be a mother." I felt anger rise within me, hot and unyielding. "They're lying. I've done everything to hold this family together, and they're the ones tearing it apart." Ben nodded. "We'll gather more evidence. Their claims are desperate, and the judge will see that. But be prepared. They won't back down easily." Over the next few days, Rachel and I worked late into the night, gathering more proof. I combed through my journals, recounting every hurtful moment, every degrading comment. The memories were painful, but each one steeled my resolve. I would not let them win. Finally, the day of the final hearing arrived. The courtroom felt colder, the tension palpable. Greg and Susan sat across from me, their faces hardened. I could feel their resentment, their anger. But I was beyond caring. This was my fight, and I was ready to see it through. As I spoke, I laid bare every moment of manipulation, every instance of feeling like a prisoner in my own home. I described the pain of being isolated, the nights I'd spent crying in silence, feeling like I was disappearing. I could see the judge's expression soften, her brow furrowing as she absorbed my words. Finally, Greg's lawyer tried once more, repeating their claims of my supposed instability. But I saw the judge's expression shift. She wasn't buying it. When the judge delivered her verdict, her voice was calm but firm. Based on the evidence and testimonies, I find that Emma has endured emotional abuse and manipulation. I am granting her full custody of her child and sole ownership of the home. The relief washed over me, so powerful I thought I might collapse. I'd won. I was free. In the weeks that followed, I moved back into my house, my true home, and started redecorating, reclaiming my space. Every brushstroke of paint, every new piece of furniture felt like a step forward, a small victory in rebuilding my life. And as I stood in what was now my baby's nursery, looking out the window with my hand on my growing belly, I whispered a promise to my child. You'll grow up in a home filled with love and respect. A home where you can be anything you want to be. I knew my journey wasn't over, but I'd finally taken control. I was no longer lost. I was finally, truly free.